What if you don't actually owe as much in taxes as you thought? Read this. It all starts with an in-depth analysis of the income tax and what it really is. Part 1. Income tax is an excise tax. Did you know that income tax isn't just a tax on everything you make? It's actually an excise tax, a type of tax that only applies when certain things happen. Think of it like a tax on a special event, like buying a luxury item or using a government privilege. Some people think the 16th Amendment changed everything about taxes, but that's not true. The Supreme Court has confirmed over and over that income tax is an excise tax, meaning it's not a direct tax on people just because they exist. Instead, it applies only in specific situations. Here's what the Supreme Court said in Brushaber v. Union Pacific R. Company, 240 U.S. 1, 1916. Taxation on income is in its nature an excise, entitled to be enforced as such. This means income tax is not just a tax on all money you earn. Instead, it's a tax that applies only when certain conditions are met. If Congress tried to tax everyone's earnings directly, that would go against the Constitution. The court explained in Stanton v. Baltic Mining Company, 240 U.S. 103, 1916, why the Brushaber ruling, it was settled that the provisions of the 16th Amendment conferred no new power of taxation, but simply prohibited the previous complete and plenary power of income taxation possessed by Congress from the beginning from being taken out of the category of indirect taxation to which it inherently belonged. So, what does all this legal talk mean? Simply put, income tax is an excise tax, not a general tax on everything you make. The government can't just tax all income however it wants. There are specific rules about what can and can't be taxed under income tax laws. Part 2. Income tax only applies to certain activities. Now that we know income tax is an excise tax, let's talk about where it actually applies. For a tax to be legal, it has to be tied to some kind of privilege or special activity. That means the government can't just tax you for earning money through ordinary work. Instead, income tax only applies to earnings connected to certain privileges granted by the government. The Supreme Court made this clear in Flint v. Stone Tracy Company, 220 U.S. 107, 1911. The requirement to pay excise taxes involves the exercise of privileges. This means if you're engaging in a government-granted privilege, the government can tax that activity. But if you're just earning a living through your own efforts, that's a different story. Even earlier, Pollock v. Farmers Loan and Trust Company, 157 U.S. 429, 1895, explained what a direct tax is. The most generally received opinion, however, is that, by direct taxes in the Constitution, those are meant which are raised on the capital or revenue of the people. In other words, the government can't impose a direct tax on your earnings unless it follows the strict rule of apportionment, meaning the tax must be evenly divided among the states. The 16th Amendment didn't change this, it just allowed Congress to tax certain kinds of income without apportionment. But it didn't create a brand new type of tax. Part 3. The Constitution protects against unfair taxes. The Constitution has rules about taxes to make sure the government doesn't overstep its power. One of those rules is in Article 1, Section 9, Clause 4, which says, "No capitation, or other direct, tax shall be laid, unless in proportion to the census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken." This means the government can't just put a tax on every person unless they divide it fairly among the states. Since income tax is not a direct tax, it has to follow the rules for excise taxes, meaning it can only apply in certain situations. Unfortunately, over time, some government officials and courts have misrepresented what the Brushaber case actually said. For example, in United States v. Francisco, 614 F.2d 617, 619 8th Sci. 1980, the court falsely claimed, the income tax is a direct tax. This completely contradicts what the Supreme Court actually said. Even the IRS has spread misinformation about the nature of income tax, wrongly stating that the 16th Amendment allows a direct tax on income. But as we've seen, that's just not true. What can you do? Now that you know the truth, you have the power to make sure the IRS processes your taxes correctly. Many people have already used this knowledge to file their tax returns the right way, based on what the law actually says. Want to learn more? You can apply to work with us to reassess your taxes, possibly recover money you've overpaid, and even reduce or eliminate unnecessary tax bills. Free scan the QR code or visit bit.ly to sign up for our tax bulletin and stay informed. 4.